Welcome to the Grolier. We have two poets reading tonight. We have Marcella Durand and Anselm Berrigan. I'm David Blair. I'm going to introduce first Marcella, then Marcella will read, then I'll introduce Anselm. Anselm will read. Marcella Durand is the author of the new book. Oh, wait, I better put these on. A Winter Triangle, which was chosen by Srikanth Reddy for the 2023-2024 Poetic Justice Institute Prize from Fordham University Press. Durand is the author of several other volumes of poetry, and she is also recipient of the C.D. Wright Award in poetry from the Foundation of Contemporary Art. And she is the co-editor of Other Influences, the Untold History of Avant-Garde Feminist Poetry. Durand is also a translator of what sounds to me like some formerly rigorous and adventurous contemporary French poetry. And the influence of Mallarmé and Rimbaud, or it might be more accurate to say the impulse to continue beyond Mallarmé and Rimbaud and other poets as well, including William Carlos Williams, the formerly adventurous and process-oriented side of Williams that searched for new ways towards music, is all over this strange and entertaining and expansive book that seems to think about American poetry and French poetry as one thing. On one hand, besides being also about continuing to invent poetry, literally a developing process as a form, which implies limitation of some sort that may or may not ever arrive, this is a book about constellations and asterisms and how we look at them. But it is also about living in this specific moment in time with patterns of gum on the sidewalk and scorpions with their joined heart shapes of pincers getting eaten by our maybe friends, the grasshopper mice, who have not asked Siri, and how one of the stars in the Winter Triangle asterism, which is more seasonal, if not more tentative than a constellation, inspires Durand to ask these questions that all of us should be asking. The Wolf Star oversees thievery and looting, but what when accuser is also a thief? What when enforcers of the law become above the law, lawless? In his introduction to A Winter Triangle, Srikanth Reddy writes that Durand is writing the most resonant French poetry in English today. And I think that is true. There is a tone of lucidity as airborne as the fabulous that sounds positively un-American to me. But Durand herself says in an interview, American poets also stand in stark contrast to capitalism in the marketplace, in that they don't produce a sellable commodity. Instead, they dedicate their lives to something that appears completely useless, unquantifiable. And I believe that this statement may be one of the secret smiles behind a book that I find joyous to read. Welcome to Cambridge and to the Grolier, Marcella Durand.
Oops. What a wonderful, joyous introduction. Thank you so much. And I feel joyous to be here with old friends. I actually grew up in Boston as a small child, and I seem to remember this bookstore being there even then. Maybe that's what influenced me. Anyway, thank you for having me. And yeah, so I wrote the Winter Triangle after a self-imposed nightmare of an assignment to myself where I was going to prove to the world that Alexandrines, the French form of 12 syllables, could work in English, because I saw quotes saying that English Alexandrines were always terrible. And I was like, well, I'm going to write good Alexandrines. So I wrote 80 Alexandrines. I'm still not sure about them, but so anyway, this book was a little bit of a release after that project, and it basically is trying to find new poetic form. Always it's meant to be. Here's to poetry in poetic form. Breath runs out at 8, and after that 12. Air turns line at 2 times 4. No air after 3 times 4, unless silent E carries vowels past that line. That line, why math it? 8 is the boundary of memory, By 12, one becomes forgetful. Beyond 12, the line loses its vibrancy. Back to 8, double the time of the heart with its 4 chambers, so a line is heart divided in 2. More than that sequence, language becomes machine, and machines are not memorable. In time of strange effusion, is it allowed to count to 12 again, or must I conform to beat of 8, deemed most effective to convey within medium of letters, following one after another, doubled beat of heart before escaping past reach of brain? But who says brain, furrowed with infinite folds, can't follow 12 syllables past end of line into misty realms? Who says gray can't be million shades of water, cloud, and winter? Who says winter is not warmer now in changing skies? Who says every shade of color isn't more attractive than monotones that dull our eyes and train our tongues to heartbeats that end before brain and much less heart begin? Who says 8 is more than 12, or 4 is more than 8, or so on into 0 and backward to before it all began, whenever that strange knowledge of what is always bending back to what is to come, where numbers end and begin again? So this book is in 3 parts, like the Winter Triangle. Somehow doing everything with numbers makes me feel like I have some control over an insane world. And the name of the form that I was supposedly trying to develop was called a septentrional, which is a word that exists in both English and French, although it took me a really long time to figure that out. In order to develop a septentrional, one's numbers must be in order. And to order one's numbers, one must listen to sounds carefully. I hear a high-pitched whine and metallic thunder that blends with my own thoughts of how difficult silence is to find, and when found, eardrum noise is just as loud. It is almost as difficult as finding darkness in a city. Until then, an approximate double dactyl, a weak form, a shadow of true form, does not have sound, but is not silent. North. The septentrional will be the resolution of form, within 7 syllables, and yet have the feeling of wind blowing through it. It has not quite resolved to its numbers. South. East. It is not resolved in form yet. It needs to be quiet and to find direction, and external reality persists in noise and distraction. West. East. To search through numbers, all the numerals when they were first invented, to think, to be away from silence. West. This is a quote from William Carlos Williams. Without invention, nothing is well spaced. To find silence within a form, to find silence along the line, include a space, a caesura as large as one wants it to be. Include a space, a caesura, a place for wind to come through, a space within the line, inside the form for air to enter, instead of turning at a wall of words to turn otherwise and travel somewhere else to blow away. A space within the line, as the line could be, a place for invention could be where the new is invented. To cut out. I'm thinking of a caesura, a place to rest, to allow air. It could be placed after the 3rd or 4th syllable in a 7-foot line. But then I read that an extra syllable before the pause was forbidden by Pierre Fabry and Jacques Pelletier Dumont in their Pleine Rhétorique and Art Poetique, respectively, in 1521 and 1555, respectively, and Dumont was the first to use the term césure in French. Césure means cut or cut off. It could also be cut out, as in a Caesarean, which I thought named after Julius Caesar, and his mother being the first co-recipients of a now over-common procedure in a continuingly Caesarean culture. But cadere is a Latin verb meaning to cut off, and all variations derive from that root. Caesura is not to cease. It might be to continue on after a rest. To soldier on, to endure, to persist after a rest, a break to allow rejuvenation within the line. Rejuvenation. Rejuvenation is a term with 4 dots that indicate high frequency in current usage, often used to describe botanical, biological, or geological processes. The uplift rejuvenated a river valley. Politicians are rejuvenated by infusions of vampire blood. But perhaps most importantly, rejuvenation is used to describe how a soil system is returned to an earlier state, not through development, but the opposite, undevelopment, or rewilding, or laying fallow, or leaving it the fuck alone. Seeds brought by plants, seeds dropped by animals, seeds wanted and unwanted. We wait to intervene selecting, if we have labor and funding, which plants get to stay and which get ripped out, feeling down stem to find the end of the root and then pull. Tubers and legumes, legumes and tubers, tubercles on the lips of cacti through a subhumus network, a mycelial drive through ecosystems, through worms who digest plastic, Lumbricina carbon capture possibility. We may have forgotten actually how soil is formed. So instead, let it blow away. Let invasives take over. Let soil be buried under skinny skyscrapers. Let permanent shadows fall upon it. Let long shadows fall upon the fields. Let the fields of sun be in darkness half the day. Let half the day be dark. Let it be completely unproductive. Let us not put each tree in a pot. Let us not make trees be decorative. Let us not inspire trees to hate us. Let us not hate trees. Let us not hate green things. Let us let them alone. Let us let them be with each other in abundance.
Yeah. Second that.
Poetry is always aspirational. The huntsman spider. The huntsman spider travels into the desert at night, meets another huntsman spider. They clash but do not fight. The huntsman spider has already memorized constellations of the night sky to find its way among the grains of sand back home. It closes the sandy door to its small tunnel after it, as the male gecko cries for the female gecko to travel under the owl sky, and the grasshopper mouse devours the scorpion glowing under twilight. Scorpius, with its 3 syllables and red heart, a red star and center of constellation being, as scorpions glow in ultraviolet light, scorpions make hearts to each other in the desert, stinger to stinger. Beware the grasshopper mouse, Scorpius. Beware its sweet jeweled eyes watching your heart. It is immune to your sting. It howls at the moon after dragging your shell towards your red star heart. Stars that are interesting: Antares, Sirius, Procyon, Betelgeuse. 4 plus the sun equals 5 stars. 3 belong to an asterism, 1 to a constellation, 3 to the north, 1 to the south. 1 barely rises above horizon north. 1 is visible at dawn in late summer. 1 is not as familiar as the others. 2 are red. 1 is blue-white. 1 is usually the 8th brightest object in the night sky. 1 is always the brightest object in the day sky. 1 creates the day. 1 heralds the day. 1's red darkens. Curious to see. Day marks us within time, and imagine that within all time on one side and the other, to the north and to the south, is one day, and one day may turn into another. At the top, shades gray, blue, brown, black, ink. Blues are vivid and become points of color. Lately, the skies have been violet after sunset. I take space within the city. I move about it with qualms. What I would do is wander around alone at night because I'm curious what stars I see in the city. Bright Orion, Big Dipper low on the horizon, Mars, Venus, Sirius at certain times of year, anything at apex of sky, inside triangle created by walls, buildings, and avenues. What I do is stand on my terrace at night and early morning. I wander and then have a drink at a bar alone and strike up a conversation about stars. I get into a fistfight, broken up by myself, wandering the city at night, looking for malfeasance. How is it possible, except in a dream, for the city to be so dark? A box filled with objects so dark in the middle of a white room. Objects painted dark blue in a doorway not to be entered. Light ends at the door. The plazas are light. They are semicircles of light into which alleys empty in darkness. She wanders into a night of vanishing perspectives. She follows a line into an emotionless space. She wonders, while writing it down, how emotion is linked to cognition. Evidence shows emotion is linked to cognition. It is increasingly demonstrated that emotion is linked to cognition, and he wonders how the two ever got separated. Is thought not feeling? Is feeling not thought? Are tears not liquid manifestations of understanding? She asks, he wonders, do we perform acts the opposite of which category, or are we 7 steps away from the sun? Looking into the sun, having forgotten the special glasses, and not knowing why the corona appears as a spectrum of 7 rays. Look to the cold brilliance of the winter triangle. Wander through night of vanishing perspectives and over rocks that wash into mineral seas, under flat gray skies never to be in color, as vision is always heading to black, as what is looking at art and sky anyway, as Mars war takes uncertainty and travels directly to. It is not space that is eternal. We find the infinite in time, in eternal city, in never-ending city. What will we make of space? What will we compose out of senseless splendor? That's a term from Mallarmé's Senseless Splendor. War endures, as does poetry. May film stills be a constellation of stars, all glossy lips and marcelled hair, fur-like eyelashes throwing long shadows down cheeks. Their hair named after me, me named after the god of war. Bow takes on arrow, arrow shoots back. My first name is war, my last name is endurance, and strangely, I am a poet inventing a new form of poetry in the infinity of space, in manifestation yet to be. I'm always a little nervous before reading, so I forgot to say what a great, amazing pleasure it is to read with Anselm, as we have known each other a very long time and have had many incredible conversations about poetry, and so I definitely ascribe so much of my poetry to him, so it's really great to read with him. So, thank you for putting us together, James. When you sent that email, I was like, yes. So I'm going to read some poems from a collaboration that I just did with my mom, who is a visual artist, abstract painter. So this was kind of an amazing project to do because I used my daughter's privilege to include works that are not so representative of her work. I'll show you the piece before I start reading the poem. So if that sounds fair. If I can find the piece that I wanted to start with. Okay, so that's, and these are part of a series she did called Brushwood Hematites, and hematites are a kind of pigment of iron, so they're very heavy and very changeable. They look silver and red depending on the light that you look at them, and that it's a particular favorite of hers. But I didn't write the poems toward the paintings, and she didn't paint the paintings towards the poems. Instead, they kind of exist in their own plane of medium. In my red apron, may I ask you but one question about why you said liquid gold runs below our feet, and so we must take it out? Why did you say that in language familiar to me like water to drink or burn? You say in another language what color paper turns when it turns to blue. Blue against aging, blue against illness, blue against theft, blue against loss, blue against, blue be stalwart, fixed to the cloth, whether cotton or wool, be a shade more delicate than what you may turn, use fewer muscles, not as much energy, fly not across the world, drive not across the land. And this is the next piece. And this poem is My Occupations, which I stole from Henri Michaud, who wrote a great poem called My Occupations. My intention changed through the course of water. It shifted with the light to a more serene or more acceptance type feel. Or maybe if I wished for a tree growing through the floor, if it were possible to live outside, but in comfort to which I have grown accustomed, like the birds, including the one I found under the couch, living on dust mites and nesting in dust bunnies. It is incredible it survived all this time for me to discover. If I use my eyes, even cloudy or closed through a sequence of panic, calm, anxiety, breath, panic, don't post to me. I can't take it today. I am in delicate cycle with all the suds. My domestic sphere is about me. I clean counters and floors myself. I have no one do it for me. You are not no one. I think of how your energy is constant, so impressive, so unlike my flickering. Maybe I'll dedicate that to my husband over there with his constant energy. The blue hour. The horizon is violet, the time is furtive, clouds mirror sky and land is cast in orange shadow. It is time. Wind kicks up senses of change. Waves crash home to land where violet will transform to indigo, blue, violet, indigo, blue, indigo, violet, blue, indigo, violet, blue, 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 violet, indigo. I think I forgot to show the artwork. I kind of liked writing blue poems against these red hematite pieces. Circles for Wheelmakers, Rock Edition. That's part of a series I've been working on called Circles for Wheelmakers. That's kind of offerings to poets, the wheelmakers. Here are the circles. Turn on candle to face nest of trees, flanked by rock of so many layers. It reaches a wave shape, reaches pyramid. It does not have myths to say to me, but then my hearing is not tuned to its volume. It leans upward, a vent pushed it over or some hand underground. Any caves lead to more rock. Asked about candles. We return to candles. I am burning candles, not turning on lights, yet insects are not shy, hatch tiny green, and then enormous. You cannot lead away from me. Your trails are deep, and now you reply in a single note, your only indicator in the dark. And I'll finish with this poem. The New Gravel. They have hacked, they have sawed, they've mulched. The trees have been cut. They are all being cut. They are cut down. The stumps of the trees, the branches sawn off, the circles of raw wood left bare. The tree with no leaves, the tree with no branches, the stumps of the trees, the shapes of the stumps of the trees. The shapes against the sky, against all of the clouds, the silver of tree bark, silver of tree against bare sky, last silver of tree. The tree silvers down the tree into slivers and splinters, chips and dust. The smell of the trees mulched down into dust, piles of dust, moved into trucks and away to more piles on other islands. Wood dust of all of the trees, dust against the sky, bare sky of trees, the sky bare of trees, the sun bare of trees, sun straight in, the sun comes straight in over the water, with the water, and the sun without trees. All the trees that were cut, here the sun and water straight in, and windless air. The trees are now red, the stumps of the trees, the stumps with no branches, the red of the trees and no leaves to be seen, left with no leaves, no branches, no twigs. The roots will be pulled, the roots will be cleared, all of the roots under the ground will be pulled, every trace of the tree will be gone, every chip, every scent, every leaf, every gnarl, every nest. The tree will be cut. The tree has been cut. All of the trees have been cut. All of the trees are red. The blank shape of a tree, where a tree was. The sun comes into the blank spaces. The wind and the water come into the blank spaces in the shapes of trees. The smoking shape of where the tree was cut down. The blankness of soil where the tree was. Once cut, the soil pulled up with the roots under the crown and the soil carted away. The stripping of soil under the roots and the stump cleared away. The small roots and the tendrils and the hairs into soil, all of the soil carted away, and down to the blankness of under the soil. What is under the soil of a platform of debris, of fill, all of the soil stripped and trucked away after the leaves and twigs and branches have been sawn, and the trunk left in rain, and then the trunk cut down in circles after circles down to the stump, and the stump cut more as close to the soil, as close to the bottom to the stump, and into the roots, and then the roots are sawn through the soil and lifted out with chains, and the entire stump comes up and out with soil in its roots, and the small roots into smaller hair-like roots, and the leaves, nest, grubs, and rocks embedded into the net of roots. All comes out from the hole in the soil, and then around the soil is shovels and shoveled out, and the bulldozer comes and grabs the soil, and the hole, the bulldozer, the edges of the hole makes it large, until the soil turns gray and it rains, carrying the soil into the river, and wind blows the fine dust of soil into lungs, noses, and mouths. So goes the soil into how we talk, we breathe, we eat the soil, we eat dirt, we eat the dust of the new gravel. And that's the piece that. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful.
Thank you. Let's never cut another tree down.
Yeah. Okay. Anselm Berrigan is the author of Something for Everybody, Come In Alone, Notes from Irrelevance, Zero Star Hotel, and Pregrets. I just had my students in the MFA program at UNH read his new book, Don't Forget to Love Me. And here's what some of them had to say. I told them that their homework assignment was to write my introduction for Anselm. I was only half kidding, but some of them did it. So here's what those students had to say. Blake Harris. Anselm Berrigan's Don't Forget to Love Me defies summation. The pages are filled with revolutionary poetics, the invention of a language in real time through phrases and syntax never before written. What better move can a poet make than to embrace fragmentation and mimic stylistically the horrors of our world, which likewise cannot be easily articulated? And I agree, vet bills are outrageous. This is what Monroe Miller said, a fiction writer. I thought his poetry was quite abstract. He had quite nice descriptions and actions throughout the poem. His abstractness and the absurdity of the poems leaves lots of room for the reader's interpretation. Monroe gets an A. Carrie Stewart said, Anselm Berrigan redefined structure through inventive journalistic observations woven into abstract wordplay, focused on honest perception of his own feelings and the world around him. Berrigan explores the pandemic-afflicted world while confronting his own isolation, political views, and how expensive his cat's surgery was. An interesting journal set as abstract wordplay poetry. Tabitha is a horror writer. A lot of these poems read like trying to have a conversation with a manic person. I'm so interested to see how these poems are read aloud, since when I try to, I stumble over the words. Berrigan must be a skilled public speaker to be able to rumble through these. I'm excited to see it. The poem on page 145 is my favorite. I like the simplicity of the poem and yet complexity of what it's saying. And then Kevin said, formerly inventive, philosophical, rooted in observation, Anselm's poems are a deep study in free verse. Here possibilities explode and recombine like abstract art through the language itself, though the language itself is so tangible and concrete. What I love about his work is its paradoxical take on being liberated and constrained within the medium of poetry itself. And here's what I said. Don't Forget to Love Me is a wonderful book to roam around in. It's a big book and has more social texture and characters than most novels. It makes me glad we are not in COVID lockdown anymore, but it also reminds me that COVID was a time in which many people began to live more like poets, spending time alone, trying to be outside, climbing the walls, suffering Zoom meetings. And I think it also conveys what New York feels like today, especially if you are not rich. Anselm Berrigan, welcome to the Grolier.
Yes, I did. I read it. Of course I read it.
Thanks, David.
Did you?
I don't know if I can read from this now. It's a lot to live up to, especially that first one. Damn. But all of them were really nice. So please thank those folks for me. I guess I'll see some of them.
Yeah, you see them.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Thank you for having us, and that's great. Thanks. I'm glad we get to read together. We've known each other forever. We can't really figure out if we've ever read together before. All right, this regrets. Can you hear me well enough? Okay. Regrets. I told the apparently latent little box I was slapping myself recursively. Long live the down with the box frame, the howdy human condition. But I was relaying read a pre to avoid having to admin it. But I was lying. Like now I'm just trying to remind your yous I can do this, being a thingless telephat on the hill so as to speak as. Give my love to the air out there, the sets of smacktivated pisses. I was ordered to kill a spider yesterday. More pesticides for me and my roots. I should look up the origin of out of the blue idiom, but you can decoratively do it for me with a sagacious hose in the alley, an alley priming its pump in another world. Alas, sitting here in cold anonymity, someone who doesn't dig me, platonically, walks in werewolf-specific shirt rips. That wall is being red flashlights called upon by a radiated day-glow yellow fold to sit, watching the game on radio. Don't you ever draw on a napkin with my pen again, you little winner. In the 70s, the adults could raise money during the day and still hate dinner. Now we're supposed to be complex, never broke, and critically violent while dissolving the masks of subjectivity. Well, we are. You don't have to care about that shit. Degrets. Image production sells us our meltdowns. We con ourselves into participation, coming on and of at ages. Laughter is very, very good to the coeval populace disfigured via comparison with flow. I don't know. Numerously. Flattened impact players mounting real madness and ending anti-heroically. Even sanity ain't sanity. Disinvited to play Dragon City, please. Snipers gotta stop ripping off pigeons. First vision's the vulgar one. Sadness tones given by the dark dominant. A self-portrait all ash-colored. True parasites of the object. Glad I figured out how to be kinder to my brother. Outside of any unfortunate art, please accept all my regards. Zapf explains, your rethought got rethoughted, or verily skate ragged and rebesotted. Neutrality in shadows, misuse of shadows. When you put camouflage on, I can't see the bummer's rehab eternal. If to be is the object of resurgence merged with insurgents, will be a nice menu memory, druggy and huggies. Replacement level topless Vatican protester who stole Jesus free. I used my transfer drawing to hop on unlimited lead heads from behind. The practice shadow in a form of public. Shape contains form and moves for listeners listening to how you say you see walking get held on the abs, the sides, the gaps, the co-flats, the blocks, the periwinkle tune symbols gliding down through the locks. This is a little chapbook from Sputnik and Fizzle. This poem is called Kit Fisto. Actually, it's not a question. Kit Fisto. Sorry. If you happen to watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, then you might know who I'm talking about. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Kit Fisto. Sly, smiling, tentacle-headed Jedi. Never really got to say anything. Dude was green. Highly skilled. Came from a planet named Glee Anselm. I love Kit Fisto. I hate it when he dies. He goes out like a chump. I wrote that poem actually. I wrote that poem and my brother is a poet, came over, and I just written it, and I had just ended it at the part where it says, "I hate it when he dies." And Eddie walked in, and I said, "Hey, you remember Kid Fisto?" And Eddie said, "Yeah, he went out like a chump." And then I read him the poem, and he said, "Yeah, you need this for your last line." So that's a collaboration. All right, this is the poem on page 145. The words get together in the early morning and decide on who they're going to fail that day. They pick people, the people who will go on to say, "Language failed me today." Poem written during a Zoom meeting. The door bus ringeth multiply. Everyone dies extra slowly. Poem written just before turning 50. Mickey Mantle didn't believe he'd make it to 50. A book told me. David told me it was 40, actually. The babe only just made it past 50. The termites have got me, Babe told Connie. Dad, Steve Carey, Albert Notley Jr., none of them made 50. Bill Russell just left at 88. Beulah was mad she wouldn't make 100 when cancer came her way at 94. I dreamt when she was in hip replacement surgery, In 2011, the doc put a little red, white, and blue ABA basketball in there to keep it all together. Is Claude L. Washington really gone, Ricky? I'll never be older than Phil Necro. I'll always be older than Juan Soto. Come home, Brittany Griner. Be let go and brought home. Where's that goddamn bridge? Il Punto? They say, the Bostonians say Bucky fucking Dent. A sentence. A poem. But Judy, our neighbor who dated Adam the Rocker, whispered fucky Dent to me once in the old days. Teddy Higuera and Larry Gura, Tippy Martinez and Scott McGregor, Yankee killers all. But George Brett was a fucking Balrog, a demon from the ancient world. Actually, no. He was Morgoth, the Dark Lord. Edgar Martinez was the fucking Balrog. All right. I don't know. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read some stuff that I've written in the last few months, and so this is pretty raw, and but I wouldn't read it if I didn't think something was happening. Okay. I had this idea that I would, for the rest of my life, write poems that were all called Chicken Soda. It was a grief. I got two. So this is called Chicken Soda 153. 99 degrees, impractically closer to autumn in Needles than a just now shot of summer stench waiting for a truism train. Tatted Legos playing at oblivion. You know your backpack's open, right? I do now. Or, I was just letting its horizon-based ecosystems get some shabby air. My developer is all fucked up. Self-describing as dead sober. A big fat giant toad tool of merch hawking drama at the Opera House. A real place at least once or twice, by the way. I woke up thinking you alive and knew you weren't. That's an almost improvement. No phone call to put off or schedule when to accept. I'm still waiting for the hematologist, a kind man, to remember to call me back. Ranking choice, where we at? Eddie just got his limbs back from the branch of meetings Medscape says he has to be at. Could have just taken out them walkers with thermal grenades, one per AT-AT, and spared the speeders. But what did rebels know in the spring snow back when it was 1980? All right, man, I'm gonna come around and have you sign my book. Chicken soda, Vermont style. Adiralia trifoliate Hoover. Damn, that boy can splay. An egg that is a basket chair hangs too low to the soil for cushion life. John Deere agrees from above and below the hole waiting a decade to be plumbed. Please, no response and no consent necessary. But only I can wave toe to the unresponsive. At this point, falling is not an option. Bathtubs get frightening from the vantage of your houseboat, pool shooting adjacent to eternity. Here, have a C-note for moving on from the enormity Iris projects with words and their bafflements built from behavior. These red-backed shrikes or red-eyed vireos keep distracting me from further development of tick paranoia. I decided to drown the dog tick on my phone, then calf, then forearm, rather than bludgeoning its pesky armor with a heart-shaped piece of obsidian to my right. Who is Claire Porter? I almost want the porcupine stew, but we'll pass on the groundhog patty. The erotics of the tick check never seem to truly manifest. I am a poor specimen, if not an impoverished one. No thanks on the cocaine nasal spray tip. Green Ave trees jump out their trunks to cuddle with parked cars on both sides of the street. Close out heaven. These humans who love to not know, we put them in charge. We put the least interested humans in charge. The unkind, the unimaginative, the unintelligent. They are not lost. They are not disillusioned. They are barely at this point pitiable. And we put them in charge. Repeatedly. I was a little upset when I wrote that one. Okay, this is called Scarified Pavement. There's a stooge sitting in the control room. We met at a clam bake. What's a worse fate in terms of things you get called? Weasel, fink, or turkey? Do you assume, or maybe even imagine, goons have no feelings? Ain't that what the sacks are for? There's a thing going on now. I don't understand it. Periodically you go through this, usually in the past, on network TV. It's some kind of dispute, probably about money. But I know for a fact it's a dispute. It's like a campaign. Not campaign the NBA player, but a way to make us feel left out. Judge Judy, left in. Reality's wallpaper rips open on both sides of a hall at which interdimensional aliens are supposed to be ready to communicate the new way, or offer their stems in matrimony, Megatop Phoenix style. I got that and 10 other cassettes for $1 once, before our address dissolved and the folks moved to Paris. Fuck keeping the tenement in the family. The injured are no longer adored, adorned, but for maybe and stammered when truly detectable as nuts without the contemporary warnings one might get handed, candidate style. You know that look. They don't bother me no more, but you'll get that glad hand-eye discoordinate for years to come. I don't want this to happen, the firing of the person who did this. I just want someone to say it happened. That was said on TV, pasted back onto a scroll of complaint, the new litany. Why don't you just complain more? The dying tiger on the bus zoo movie. Take that dart out of your mouth. Avoided having to recite by dying. Stared at regularly in its final days by a widower unscripting his corny confusion. Never could fetch that license. In the mid-'80s, I used to take rides on the backs of buses when I should have been traveling by foot. I like that poem, but it's questionable. This poem is called Doing Stuff Sucks. And it's for Lynn Haginian. I take it the beginner is someone else. And rank that impulse. Optimism in a slurry. Someone else experiencing you beginning. The opposite of privacy, being the beginner in your show. Expanding, I don't know. Moving, yes. The latest beginning I was said to share got fated in its own acknowledgement. Please keep the fatesters over there. I do not think of confusion as rapid. Hard to think of iron as hard, since my body is filled with iron and I can't feel any of it. Monument shit. I have to admit I no longer know, and things don't know, what an occasion is. the unbeginner wakes in the absence of speculation, which is another fucking drag. Gives clothes away to the kids and art. Please take care of this. It was a gift. We can't be keeping so many gifts these days unless someone gifts us a big unbroke home. To continue as beginner, pull the rug out from under your existence. Or don't. Is such action a happy pattern? Then you repeat without variation, as bashful stumblers go. Pitch, collision, instrument. The storage space walls need our mold-free tenderness. I lost tracks of guests, feeling familiar, being a fourth order of guess. Can't shake this out. It really is melancholy being a beginner. L.H. Lynn, I wouldn't know. Children follow. Desertion. You think that word is a thing? The study of the fucked over begins with the feeling you knew so much before you started to remember what's happening. I'm a beginner in the dark, if I'm a beginner at all. I don't think so. And I'm gonna read this a little bit of a longer poem to finish. If I'm not reading too long. And this poem is called "What is the Purpose of a Guinea Hen?" The title of which may make sense about midway through. That makes sense, but you know, like the title might actually seem to be involved with the poem midway through. It's in 6 sections. And, okay. What is the purpose of a guinea hen? I didn't have a bug on my back, but I did bring 2 dog ticks to New York from Vermont recently. So yeah, these are all written around the same time period. I was on a jag. You know how some words are dysfunctional? Literally is one of them. You think you're being emphatic saying that literally happened, but it would be of greater strength and acuity to say that happened, even if you're not especially fond of reserve. This could be said to be a matter of character, such as you are in your own works and their days. We would like to think all doctors, having taken the Hippocratic oath, will be good at their jobs, the tasks of which at hand are many, as with poets. But I've had bad doctors and good doctors, and the difference is not hard to suss out. Pain will make you understand who's good at their job. You don't want your doctor being a 55%er when it comes to attention to your physical particulars. I had one surgeon have to sew up my hernias 2 times, and somehow the jobs didn't take. I don't know if he was good or bad. Sometimes it's all genetics, which feels like a cop-out, whatever that is. See you later, officer. You will just have these holes opening up in your belly, and that's that. Call us when the next one opens and your intestine starts poking through again. Okay. The French medical system is more humane than the American system. That is in fact true. Mainly because the French take money mostly out of the system's equation for you, and Americans aren't taught how to understand the practicality of such separation. That doesn't mean there aren't expenses. When our mother died recently, we had to pony up 3,200 euros for cremation, a casket, and an urn. Do you want flowers? Nah. Do you guys want music? Nah, dude. You get 30 minutes in a room to do a ceremony. Okay. Do you want to project any images? No. Do you want to come to the hospital and ride in the car with the casket to Père Lachaise Cemetery? No. We'll take the metro. A little bit faster. The undertaker got it. We wanted to read some poems, keep it plain, and keep the costs down. But the hospital bill, after a month of Mom being there, and a surgery to remove one of her kidneys, and a biopsy, and endless scans and tests and shots and morphine near the end we didn't see when her neuropathy pain was overwhelming, but not enough that we couldn't keep talking about the pain, the music, the poems, our family, our friends, the state of the world as we fought to understand our stupid country and all its qualities, our humor, plus regular meals 3 times a day. She said they weren't bad. When she could keep them down. And kind and well-trained nurses on hand at all points, mostly. No bill. Everything was handled as a matter of ordinary course. Alice never stopped talking with anyone near her. 2. Midway through the path of this poem, maybe I had to combine a dump with a dive. That's realism for you. No, sorry. I'm getting the pacing wrong. When I refer to audience in this poem a couple times, I'm not talking about y'all, just so you understand. Midway through the path of this poem, maybe I had to combine a dump with a dive. That's realism for you dumbasses out there. I left home for college in 1989 and thought maybe, I don't know, folks would be more civilized attending university in Buffalo. Nope. Ended up living with dudes who, maybe have changed their ways or rehabilitated somehow since then, but man, they were so fucked up and wrong about so many things, I'm not sure I should even put them here. Like, how there are slurs that don't get used with any reclamation, words so vile in their application towards the degradation of humanity they can't even be in songs, or used with complexity, which some folks might even call irony, but you don't know what that is. And yes, I'm a bitch, but here we are, afraid of words, again. And I know you're there, so suck it up, audience. No one says the G word, right? Maybe some do, away from these ears, as and not like. Anyway, these guys enjoyed casual hatred so much, I had to say, what the fuck? And they were like, oh, you called us on our shit. And I was like, well, it hurts. I was trying to gambit. And they said, huh. But oh, you think you're better than us. And I was like, wait, no, maybe. And so they doubled up and tripled up. Imagine, and you can imagine, as soon as someone says, I can't imagine, somewhere they're likely shutting down. Imagine living with 3 potheads getting high every night just to say horrible things to you and cackle riotously, and you have to listen to the Grateful Dead the whole time. Bootlegs of the Dead's live shows, so many non-variations because the Deadhead was the worst human and had the biggest stereo. Did I move out? No. Was I brave? No. Did I go back to New York City at the end of the spring and in some fucked up, slow way re-embrace all the same problems and ills and scary-ass individuals that made me want to leave the city in the first place? You better fucking believe it. 3. Being a poet is very much like has a lot to do with the way that little children make things. Children can make a game out of anything. And if you leave any special things lying around on the floor, the children will get them, and they'll put the milk bottle into the shoe and paper bag crammed into the milk bottle, and they'll bring it over and say, look, what I made. And you say, that's really terrific. That's really great. What is it? And then they say, I don't know. What is it? Unfortunately, most of you are not little children, and if you put the milk bottle in the shoe and the paper bag in the milk bottle, you'd be geniuses. But that isn't what you'll do. What you'll do is write down about 30 boring lines about your relationship with your mother, or something. And then you'll bring it over and you'll say, look what I've made. And generally, most people will say, yeah, yuck. I can't believe it. God damn. Are you out of your mind? Why don't you go out and read Dante or something? Consequently, what you need to do, because it is very important when you make something to be able to show it to someone and have them say it is terrific, so that you will. I mean, it's necessary to get affection, love, a certain kind of understanding. It's also necessary to get encouragement, and it's necessary to be able to make a show. Like, for example, a peacock does what it goes like this. I forgot to bring my peacock with me, but I mean, they just go up and say, look what I made. That's actually part of the important part too. The peacock doesn't care, you know. The peacock comes up and goes like this, and you say, boring, man, send me a guinea hen. 4. I might drop Newt Bar for Durban. I kind of want to drop him and use the bench spot for a pitcher to hold. Is that wrong? That's tough. McNeil's projection is bad this week. You can't trust anyone who puts their seat all the way back. Con Ed rushes the penny. I'm only one cow away, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God. I don't, but we do, when we can't imagine what you're going through. One waits to say hello forever. Ribald hot spit on the tip of the hernia's hot spur, always on the mover's pavement getting to move, but their health caring for you. The system unsees its own lack of how things howl, knots leave wares unbuying. Cremation shows up as a result of sudden death, and that can't happen out of stride once the tubes get pulled from the throat. Mediocre gymnastics on the L train set to weaselly semi-beats. Steve would decry our use of adverbs, but if you heard the passing tunes, you'd conform to this monstrous usage, indicative of poor character, and not only in the abstract, upon which one is asked to reflect getting out of bed, eyeing the latest hickey, a form of replacement star. If the drunk photographer needs company in bed, who will not emerge to take the charge? A crying blue octopi, tentacle-free, to keep taggers away. A notaire finally makes contact, facts in assemblage, busy predicting the coming underground, the years they were born, the portraits of quixotic herons angrily dive-bombing the gulls in waiting. Inside, the station is freezing. Even the Galway hooker is no stage for warmth, so we watch these birds mimicking slums on the older tracks. I don't know where this comes from. I just set up cracks and named disciplines. I remember Qatar giving the president a picture plane. 5. Turns out if you run in circles with folks every day for months at a stretch, you can make friends. I wouldn't have put it that way at the time, but that's what I think happened to me when I was 15 and 16 in high school at the prestigious public, but you have to take a test to get in, Stuyvesant of the Peg Leg. Horrible. Worse than whatever Brando's Kurtz went through. I mean, nobody was filming me from the head down to hide my what, but just school, okay. So I went from having 2 friends, Ulysses and Daryl, hi guys, to a bunch more and some of their friends, and every day most of us, would meet up after classes were done, but before homework had to be done, and go run in circles together. The cross-country team ran in non-circles sometimes, or longer non-ones. The reservoir at Central Park is a type of circle, but whatever those paths are in Van Cortlandt Park are not. And cross country was a little more fun because we didn't have or need a coach. But track, indoor and outdoor, you run in circles in incredible growing legions of pain, and you bond with the people you're running in circles with because you know it sucks together, and you're supposed to be smart, so why are you subjecting yourself to this shit? And the other athletes on other teams at Stuyy and other schools don't respect you, and the coach maybe respects you if he's coming around, and your former teammates who bailed don't respect you but might pretend to, and no one watches or goes to the meets, and you won't still even go on a date until you're 4 years into college. But these are the names that I conjure when I need to remember without knowing the need is even there, when I remember who helped me start to become a person who could talk and get to know other kids and be something like happy again after some hard years. Wally, G, Danny, Carlo, Jen, John, Tito, Sumatra, Surendranath, Brian, Kathy J, Kathy M, Sylvia, Mike, Michael, James, Mervyn, David Ree, Betty, Lyle, David Sy, Anthony, Waylon, Noam, Wendy, Noel, Duncan, Coach Jacob Dennis. I have no idea where most of you are, other than in my heart and this thing I'm calling a poem. 6. That said, we should have maybe let Trump nuke that hurricane his first time around as president. It would have been catastrophic, but I don't think he'd have been reelected. I could be wrong, but I don't think you reelect the person who nukes the hurricane. We might is all I'm suggesting now. This is a forum here for imagination. Don't forget that before you freak out on me. However, elsewhere you might be. We might be better off with a nuked hurricane and no second Trump presidency. Now, I'm just sitting here talking out loud to myself and saying really amazing things. But it's weirding out the folks around me who are noticing that I'm just talking to myself. It's late and I'm talking out loud to myself about how weird it would be to read everything someone ever wrote. I was thinking about Ron. I don't need to read what he just wrote yesterday, or what he was writing when he was 15 and his dad was a bootlegger and they were in Tulsa, though I would, but not for research, just out of curiosity, which might be the same thing sometimes, but not all the time. And Ron was reading French poetry by surrealists in translation. And maybe we have to acknowledge the French are so strange to the point where someone really bonkers, like Magritte, is just another guy for them. That's not true. I'm just thinking about Magritte, who was very much only who he had to be. And his mom died when he was young, and it makes me upset. But I also get it. But I can't be putting no hood over anybody's head. But I understand. And was he more of a fantast than a surrealist, as CC and PG posited in that unpublished interview I sent you, and maybe even made you read aloud from, so we could talk about the difference between fantasy and enigma? Hi. I miss you too. Sort of. But really, surrealism is just a pathway to talking about baseball. The players will say it's really surreal when something cool happens and they have to talk about it live, because professional sports is about the last live TV thing that goes on. And I'm sitting somewhere and I'm thinking that's not surreal. That's a dream script turned into fate, turned into you. And there are no animal heads or pretend random breasts on your gear. But then for a kid who's 22 and just learning English in order to do a job that is a game that is really hard and demanding, but can pay well, but you have to go to weird places to work that you wouldn't likely choose to go hang out at. And then someone puts a mic in your face. Oh, bad timing. Wow. I've never done this before. I get to the last page and it's gone. No, it's cool. I'm actually so professional that I'm totally unfazed by this. And I'm sorry, I know that's not what you're expecting, but what am I supposed to do? Feel bad? I mean, and I'm sitting somewhere and I'm thinking, that's not surreal. That's a dream script turned into fate, turned into you. And there are no animal heads or pretend random breasts on your gear. But then for a kid who's 22 and just learning English in order to do a job that is a game that is really hard and demanding, but can pay well, but you have to go to weird places to work that you wouldn't likely choose to go hang out at, and then someone puts a mic in your face in front of 50,000 people and asks you how you feel, that could be called surreal. In the song Daisy Dukes, the rapper rhymes on with on. Look at those girls with the Daisy Dukes on. They really got it going on. I remember that, and I know I can do that because they did that and got a certain amount of mileage out of jean shorts worn by Catherine Bach in a show that came on before Dallas once a week that I used to watch with Mom and my brother. Bobby dreamed a whole season. The Dukes drove a car named the General Lee. The cops were corrupt bumblers, but deep down there was supposed to be fragments of heart. Remember when Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face? All the sports writers did. Politicians borrow sports language all the time and don't know shit about sources. Sources don't always make it to the surface. Why should they have to? Do you remember last year? The jacket is furniture. I have to fix all the tools. Oh, Daddy, who can stand it? What a strange life. We keep saying things just to stick around. Thanks everybody. Thanks for putting up with this travesty.
Just want to say briefly, thank you, Marcella, and thank you, Anselm. Let's give them another round of applause for our wonderful reading this evening. Thank you to David for your wonderful introductions. Let's give David a round of applause. Thank you. And thanks to all of you. Thanks to everyone on Zoom. If you would please put some of your chairs up against the wall, I'd be very grateful. We have some books for sale. Poets will be signing books. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.